let's take a look at Brutal Legend. This is my most recent project. I was the user interface designer, and this role came with a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of creative freedom. Basically, I was in charge of the look and feel of all the 2D art and graphic design elements in the game, which includes basically all the things that are currently dancing in front of you on your screen. You've probably noticed that a lot of the graphic elements share a high contrast black and white aesthetic. I created this kind of as a foil to the lush metal-inspired art direction of the world, so they would stand out from it, but not in a way that distracted from it. I helped to develop the look of the cutscenes that tell the backstory of the game, which is revealed through medieval-style woodcuts, which I always thought would look really cool in a game. But here's my favorite thing that I worked on, and at times it was also the most headache-inducing thing. It's the main menu, the first thing you see when you start the game up. It's presented as an interactive video, where you navigate through a record album, turning it over, examining every part of it. The way you might with a brand new album that you just bought and you've taken home and torn the plastic off of and you're just visually devouring it. As you study the artwork, you let your imagination run wild about the kind of world it depicts. And this is perfect because Brutal Legend tells the story of a roadie that gets sucked through time into a heavy metal inspired fantasy world. This just seemed like the perfect way to introduce that world. And presenting it as a 70s style gatefold album, something so iconic of heavy metal, and also representative of a bygone era. This really sets the tone for the game. So, moving on, let's go behind the scenes and I'll show you how I built some of this stuff. So, here's an early version that I used to pitch the idea, and here's a more fully realized one that was in the game for a while I was working on the final versions. Speaking of those final versions, here's a flowchart view in After Effects of what they looked like. And you're probably wondering, why is it so huge? Well, there's a few reasons. Okay. First, there's the ordinary tweaks, like blurring out a distracting billboard or color correcting for underlit scenes.
It was too big.
Since we didn't have too much time to shoot the real thing, there weren't a whole lot of takes to choose from. And often the best one would need some cleaning up.
Oops.
So here I masked out part of the sleeve that shouldn't have been in the shot, and I also got rid of the reflection from the camera's red light. Another issue that arose from the lack of takes was sometimes I had to make two shots from two different takes match up with each other. They'd be close to start, but I'd have to get them the rest of the way, which required a lot of masking and some animating. But the end results are pretty seamless. You might have also noticed that there's actually no words on the prop album that we used in the shoot. And that's because I had to create versions of the main menu that were also in Spanish, French, German, and Italian. So everything was actually done with nested compositions, so I could easily swap out the text. But that's also part of the reason the file became so huge. Most of the footage had to be retimed so it wouldn't feel sluggish when you were navigating the menu. This clip is a good example because the end drags on for a long time, so when I applied the time warp filter to it, I made sure that it sped up more towards the end. So if you watch the source frame numbers here, you can see it goes from skipping 2 or 3 frames at a time up to 30 frames at a time near the end, where it needed the most time compression. And finally, here's a shot that could not be saved using the time warp filter.
Damn. This menu is taking a long time.